The superhero pastiche they were aiming for, I felt, was very well done in this episode. From the references to Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, the creators of Superman, to the globe on top of the Harmony Shoal building resembling the Daily Planet, even to key scenes from the Superman movie being recreated for this episode in different ways. I love the fact this episode didn't take itself seriously either. Sometimes I love a good dark story, just as much as anybody. The Tom Baker years, the early years, are my favourites because of the sort of the gothic horror vibe you get from stories like The Brain of Morbius, which is one of my personal favourites. But tangents aside, episodes that don't take themselves seriously are always going to be fun, given a good script, given good actors, and you've got Peter Capaldi, you've got Matt Lucas, who wasn't as bad as... I didn't mind him last year, personally speaking. He wasn't everybody's cup of tea, but I felt that this episode showed that from now on, they will begin to scale that comedy relief effect back a little bit. He knew some things that the Doctor didn't quite know. He pointed out the capital cities thing, the fact that New York's not a capital. And I look forward to seeing how they develop Nardole from here on out. The brain-swapping aliens, I'm going to have to refer to them as the bad guys from here on out, because unless I'm very much mistaken, they didn't give them a name. Slightly disappointed in that, but the bad guys, they had a really clever plan. And I like it when they're given clever plans. Doctor Who has done the Invade Earth, replace key authority figures around the world story before. I mean, they've done it with the Autons, they've done it with the Zygons, I believe. But here they give it a new twist. Let's not outright invasion, let's create a mass panic. And let's have us be undercover, let's have them rely on us, and let the authority figures come to us instead of us chasing them. I like that element a lot. I also liked at the end there was a sort of maybe a setting up of future stories, future events. The unit involvement, the fact that one of the unit soldiers was clearly taken over by these aliens. I'm a bit worried about that also, because the Zygon storylines that we've had have been interesting, they've been entertaining. It's been good to have Unit have an ongoing story arc, as opposed to being bit part players we see from time to time. I can't help but feel a bit worried that they're going to become a little cluttered with different alien infiltrations. We've got Zygons, we've got the brain-swapping aliens now. What are we going to have next? Are they going to deal with one? Are they going to deal with both of those things at once? Are they going to have just both of them be there and have a third thing to deal with? Is this just going to be the new norm? However, I can say I like that they're doing this with Unit, that Unit are having an active story arc now. Time travel was utilised in this episode in a very clever way, I felt, as well. Moffat is well known for using time travel as a plot device, but here we didn't see the Doctor travel in time per se. The script did it for us. I enjoyed that we got to see Gareth's childhood in snippets throughout the episode, and it gave us a better clue of how he'd grown up, coming to terms with his superpowers and even struggling with them at times. I enjoyed the Doctor just dipping in and out of that story a little bit. Here's where the waters begin to muddy a little bit. I liked the strong continuity references. They referenced the Angels Take Manhattan at the beginning of the episode. The Doctor was trying to clear up all the paradoxes he's caused before. They referenced River Song, they referenced the library, they referenced Beryllium from the previous episode. Nardole went so far as to mention the Time Lords and their non-interventionist policies to make a point. It's good that they create these references. People go and look back at the stories, they're reminded of them, and it gives the show a strong identity. Although part of me worries that it might alienate casual viewers a bit. When the show came back in 2005, it didn't reference every single thing that I wanted it to reference. But that was good. Doctor Who had become a bit of a niche show that people didn't watch. And as the 1996 movie proved, when you overegg it with continuity references and things that people may not understand from first viewing, it puts people off. And the attempt at rebooting the franchise in '96 completely fell flat. But in 2005, they started fresh. Whether or not you like the Time War or not, it gave the show something basic to start from. And anyone could just jump on board and learn as we went along. And I feel maybe we've reached a point where continuity references like these, they're fun when it's one or two. Maybe the amount that there were in this episode wasn't so great, because it did feel a little bit like one of those things that fans are going to get. Maybe the references went right over some people's heads. But you need to have people that haven't seen the show before understand everything that's going on. The music didn't particularly stand out to me this episode. Murray Gold has written some amazing pieces for the show. Vale Dachem, I Am the Doctor, This is Gallifrey, Our Childhood, Our Home, and of course several versions of the theme tune now. But it's beginning to seem to me personally like there are some pieces I'm hearing most every other episode. The light-hearted Doctor motif, for example, whilst I enjoyed it during the late Tennant years, early Smith years, when I first heard it to my knowledge, it's beginning to feel a bit overplayed. I mean, it must be hard over 12 years coming up with different new dynamic pieces. I'm not one to say that Murray Gold should go. I think he's a wonderful composer, and if he feels that he's got more to offer the show, then fair play to him. But maybe someone new, maybe even in conjunction with Murray Gold, something I think needs to happen that gets that spark going again. I think it's been quite some time since our last I Am the Doctor moment, where we heard a piece of music and it made you think, wow, this is amazing. We are often told the Doctor is dangerous. Lately, it's becoming harder and harder to see this. I feel, especially with this episode, we were told when the Doctor is acting childish or sort of a bit crazy or a bit of a buffoon, that this means he is dangerous. This is when he's at his most dangerous, and you mustn't let your guard down. I'm all for the Doctor being a bit of a buffoon. Troughton, big buffoon. Matt Smith was a big buffoon a lot of the time. But there were those moments when they switched off and, shit got real. And you knew, because the Doctor had stopped being a buffoon, that something was about to happen. And that he was a dangerous man. Matt Smith, I think, captured that brilliantly when he lost his childish facade and he gave you that look and suddenly spoke like completely the opposite to how you'd known. That's when you know the Doctor was dangerous. I think it's becoming there's a bit of a blurred line developing between the Doctor acting childish and playful, because that's kind of what he does from time to time. After all, there's no point being grown up if you can't be childish sometimes. There's a blurred line between that Doctor and the I'm being a buffoon so that you drop your guard Doctor. And I genuinely hope that this doesn't signal the end of the ultra serious Doctor, because Peter Capaldi has shown throughout the past two series that he can do that so well, especially the wonderful speech in the Zygon two-parter that everybody talks about. Capaldi can do that all day. And I really hope that we get some more of that during Series 10. Other than those, I don't really suppose I have very much that I could mark against this episode. I mean, Nardole, his head was glued back on, according to the Doctor. How? How? I mean, some science fiction guff, yes, but how? I can brush that aside, really. I mean, the Doctor says he did it. He did it. I mean, you know. But, yeah, really, with this episode, it wasn't an episode of any consequence, no. Like I've said, it was light-hearted. And that was good. You know, I think that was good. The bad guys, there was a they were good. I mean, they were creepy and they had a very good plan, but I think they had a sort of a lack of they had a sort of a lack of identity, really, a lack of cohesion, which I think translated into less of an overall threat than you'd get from well-established villains, the Zygons, the Daleks, the Weeping Angels. You get more of a threat of in their first episode because you're given their brand. This is the Weeping Angels brand. Here it is. This is what they do. This is who they are. I think the episode could have done with a bit more of that. But for a light-hearted Christmas episode, I fairly enjoyed it. I'm going to give it a Colin Baker out of 10. The events of Angels Take Manhattan was referenced briefly. That's not even a word. But I think this. I don't know how to put it. I'm rambling on and on. You don't want to hear this, do you, really? No. I don't. Maybe it's just Murray Gold's style that maybe we all have gotten used to it now. Maybe that's it. But I'm going to retake this, aren't I? Because I'm just getting awkward. I'm going to swig a juice.